Russian warships off the coast of Florida, and the White House, which we can barely trust, tells us, don't worry, Walid, we're monitoring the situation. What do you think is really going on?
Well, and what's going on is that Moscow, the Kremlin, have decided to increase the pressure on us to escalate, although in a symbolic way, but symbolic ways could mutate into deployment, further deployment. And my other worry, Ed, is that this is not the only place where the Russians are getting support from a country like Cuba. Remember that Russian vessels have been visiting Venezuela. That means all the southern Caribbean is affected. Russian and other vessels, probably from China, have visited Brazil. So unlike a few years ago, this is not just Russia, and this is not just Cuba. It's a large chunk of Latin America, Central America, which is now passing into influence by the Russians. But on the other hand, I'm not sure about this administration, but the United States can do the same. We are very close from Vladivostok, the Pacific port in Russia. We are very close from the Baltics. So in this game, if we have an administration that can respond in the right way, then of course that wouldn't be a threat. But what's happening right now, we are not responding.
So what do you think Russia is up to? Are they just collecting intelligence? Are they messing with the Biden administration because they know Joe Biden won't really do anything? What do you think's the motive here?
They are pushing the borders of the limitation between the two powers, meaning in the past they would come to the middle of the Atlantic, they would be very far from our shores, they wouldn't have this intensity, they wouldn't deploy such a weapon system. I mean, the units deployed now are nuclear capable. They're not nuclear now. So they are pushing the threat against us and at the same time telling us, I suppose, as long as you have sanctions against us, we're going to continue with this Cold War tactics. So they want us to remove the sanctions. Yeah. That's at the end.
One more on this, which is the sanctions, as you mentioned. Do they have any teeth at all? Because we've seen this same Biden administration lift sanctions against Tehran, and it can have deadly consequences. Are these real sanctions? Are they actually getting tough with Putin?
The U.S. Biden administration policy towards Russia, especially since the Ukraine war, is midway. And in midway strategies, you can't get anywhere. So they are neither siding with Russia nor siding really with a coalition that would pressure Russia really to withdraw from Ukraine. So they are in this middle. They have a joint interest. You just mentioned the Iran deal. Remember, the Iran deal is supported by Russia, China, and by this administration. So first, I would recommend that the White House get rid of the Iran deal so they will be freer in dealing with Russia. That's not been done because it looks like there are a lot of interest here in America and Western Europe linked to that deal. So it's about money at the end of the day.
Last thing, you've warned for a long time about the threat here at home. And you see these 8 ISIS suspects brought in. What do you think they were up to? I mean, they're plotting something from New York to Philly to L.A. Thankfully, it appears to have been broken up. ICE arrested them. But Walid, my deep concern is they went through the southern border and we're told there was some sort of a criminal background check. And even though these 8 people are terrorists, they made it through the quote unquote criminal background check. So even though they were technically stopped or detained, they got through. They got through our southern border. What does that mean?
And what can I say? I mean, you and I have discussed this for 2 decades, and we know very well if you don't have a vetting system based on the ideology of the jihadists, we can't do much. This is probably a coup de chance that our agencies were able to capture them. But look at reality. There are hundreds of thousands of mostly young males crossing the Rio Grande, crossing other points of the border. And we assume that some of these thousands are somewhat linked to jihadi groups, either supporters or members. We captured 6. Yes, that's great. We need to upload. But do we know if this is the tip of the iceberg or no? I vote that there are way more jihadists inside the United States than we think.
It's a very scary proposition. We appreciate your insight. As always, check out his podcast online, and we appreciate when you're on the briefing. Walid, thank you.
Thank you very much.